What if I told you that one of the most beloved teams on the grid could have betrayed one of its own drivers, just to crown the other? What if that betrayal was accompanied by a public threat of escape to Ferrari? What just happened at McLaren with Oscar Piastri and Mark Webber goes far beyond a simple strategy error. The 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix not only closed a season full of intense battles and technical evolution, but also opened an internal conflict in one of the most powerful teams on the grid, McLaren. In what should have been a celebration of their dominance in the Constructors' Championship and the coronation of Lando Norris as world champion, it became a media nightmare for the British team. And all because of an accusation that has set the foundations of his garage on fire: internal sabotage. Mark Webber, former Formula One driver and current representative of Oscar Piastri, broke the silence after the Yas Marina race and did not do it with subtlety. In statements leaked to the specialized press and shared with several technical analysts in the paddock, Webber claimed to have concrete evidence that McLaren made calculated, not erroneous, strategic decisions in the last two races of the Qatar and Abu Dhabi calendar with the sole objective of stopping Piastri's rise and securing Norris' title. This statement was not an out-of-place comment. It was a carefully placed bomb with clear intentions: to expose, confront, and condition the team's immediate future. The phrase that accompanied this complaint was recorded as a hidden but direct threat: loyalty has a limit and Woking has crossed it. Italy is always an option. Italy. A single country, a single word that in the universe of Formula One can only mean one thing: Ferrari. Webber is not only accusing McLaren of playing dirty with his driver, but he is also opening the door to a possible flight of talent to Maranello. A leak that could completely reconfigure the competitive landscape of the category. Now, when these types of words are uttered, especially from someone like Webber who has been on both sides of the wall, as a driver and as a manager, they are not done lightly. They are not launched with the aim of creating superficial drama. They launch themselves because behind them there is accumulated frustration, internal strategic tension, and a loss of trust so profound that it can only be resolved with a restructuring or an exit. This conflict is, therefore, much more than a passing controversy. It is a clear symptom of a fracture within the team. A rupture that has been brewing for weeks, even months, fueled by the pressure of a world title at stake, the differences in treatment between drivers and decisions that, at first glance, could seem tactically debatable, but that, under the scrutiny of those who experience F1 from within, reveal a worrying pattern. We are not talking about a simple miscalculation here. We are talking about an alleged premeditated manipulation, an internal betrayal disguised as a strategy. And when this betrayal comes from the team's own management, the consequences not only affect the injured driver. They affect the general atmosphere, the credibility of the structure, the future of internal relations. And, of course, the name of McLaren, which is now involved in one of the most serious controversies of the modern era of Formula One. To understand the magnitude of the conflict that today shakes the foundations of McLaren, we must delve into the two scenarios that triggered the scandal: the Qatar and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Two consecutive races. Two strategic decisions that, according to Mark Webber, cannot be explained as simple human errors. And two moments that could mark the end of the relationship between Oscar Piastri and the team that catapulted him to stardom. It all started in Qatar, the penultimate date of the championship. Oscar Piastri was in a privileged position. He was leading confidently, managing his tires well and with enough pace to control his pursuers. Then the element that often changes everything in Formula One appeared: a safety car. It was the ideal moment for a strategic stop. A tire change that, under normal circumstances, any top team would have taken advantage of. All direct rivals did it, less McLaren. In a decision that baffled the entire paddock, McLaren decided to keep Piastri on track with used tires. The result? He was devoured lap after lap by Max Verstappen, by Charles Leclerc, by George Russell. Pilot after pilot overcame him without opposition. What seemed like a solid victory turned into a tactical humiliation. And the most disconcerting thing, Lando Norris did stop. Lando did receive the logical treatment, the benefit of the optimal strategy. Piastri no. In Webber's eyes, that difference in treatment was no accident. It was a deliberate act. But if Qatar sowed doubt, Abu Dhabi confirmed it. The last race of the championship was coming. Everything was at stake. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri arrived with real chances of achieving glory. The internal balance of the team was more fragile than ever. The pressure was absolute. From the first round, the signs were worrying. While Norris enjoyed free passage, Piastri was stuck in traffic after a poorly calculated pit stop. The stop window was clearly unfavorable. Then, when it looked like he could recover thanks to the car's pace and clear air, He was instructed to hold position rather than attack. The official excuse: avoid unnecessary risks. But that justification fell apart when Norris later did receive freedom to pressure the drivers in front, and even received active support from the wall to execute a strategic undercut. Telemetry doesn't lie. Piastri had rhythm. I had margin. But his lap times were erratically interrupted by team decisions that forced him to get up, to give in, to wait. All under the banner of prioritizing the team's results. An expression that, when repeated without context, can hide deeper internal manipulations. The team dynamic was broken. Piastri knew he was fighting not only against his rivals on the track, but against his own garage. Against the decisions that were supposed to protect him. Against a structure that, in theory, should treat its pilots equally, but that, in practice, seemed inclined towards a single name. And this is where Webber's position gains weight. Because he is not speaking from emotion. He is speaking from tactical observation. From the data. From the experience of having lived within a team when priorities are diverted and internal politics contaminate pure competition. The pattern is clear. Qatar exposed a strategic vulnerability, but Abu Dhabi showed it was no coincidence. It was a trend. An active direction towards a specific objective, to consecrate Lando Norris as world champion. Even if that meant shutting down Oscar Piastri's momentum just when he was at his strongest. Even if that meant betraying the values of sporting meritocracy that McLaren has historically defended. This development of events, this concatenation of decisions, not only affects the outcome of the championship. It affects internal confidence, the immediate future of the team, the external perception of the fans, and the credibility of an organization that, in 2024, had been crowned as an example of efficiency. Today, that image is in question. And the consequences are only beginning to manifest. The accusation launched by Mark Webber was not just an emotional release from a frustrated manager. It was a carefully calculated political move to expose what he considers an orchestrated internal betrayal. And like every media bomb in Formula One, it didn't take long for it to detonate in every corner of the paddock. The first thing to fracture was the climate within the team. Until then, McLaren had appeared to be a cohesive unit, with two young drivers competing intensely but without crossing the lines of professional respect. That narrative was shattered in a matter of hours. McLaren's communications team immediately found itself in crisis mode, trying to contain a fire that was already burning in the British, Australian, and social media. While official silence reigned in Woking, the rumors intensified. Webber, far from backing down, intensified his appearances in key media, dropping loaded double-edged phrases. The most viral of all was the one that directly linked Ferrari with the future of Oscar Piastri. And it wasn't a slip. It was a deliberate pressure maneuver. Because by invoking the Ferrari option, McLaren's greatest historical rival and one of the most coveted destinations for any driver, Webber was not only issuing a threat. He was opening a negotiation in public. The possibility that Piastri ends up wearing red is not a fantasy. Ferrari has been exploring alternatives for some time to strengthen its lineup in the medium term. And while Charles Leclerc is an established asset, the arrival of Lewis Hamilton has generated natural tension within the garage. In that context, a young, fast, cold-blooded driver with high technical ability like Piastri represents an ideal opportunity. The fact that his own manager is floating that option publicly may be the sign that exploratory contacts have already occurred. But beyond market movements, this internal crisis also creates a dangerous precedent for McLaren. The narrative of sabotage, fed with technical data, gestures on the wall, and questionable decisions, calls into question the impartiality of the team's sports management. And that, in an increasingly even and demanding championship, can have devastating consequences. Furthermore, the impact on the pilot market can be immediate. If Ferrari shows real interest and positions itself to welcome Piastri, a domino effect would be triggered. What would happen then with Charles Leclerc or with Hamilton's continuity beyond 2025? Would Mercedes reconsider the option of picking up Norris if the relationship with Piastri ends up collapsing? These questions, which once seemed speculative, are now beginning to sound like possible scenarios. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.